Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Ever thought about needing a map for the biggest journey of all? Today, that's kind of what we're doing. We're exploring the very mysterious Egyptian Book of the Dead. We'll
Yep.
be using a specific 1904 translation. You can find it on Project Gutenberg by Renouf and Naval, our mission, to really unpack what this ancient collection is all about, its purpose, and what it tells us about the Egyptian view of the afterlife. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely. And I think the first really crucial thing to understand about the Book of the Dead is, well, it isn't a book, not like we think of one. It's actually a collection, a huge anthology, really, of separate spells and prayers. These bits and pieces were gathered and tweaked over, honestly, thousands of years. Some parts go way back, like to the Old Empire.
Thousands of years. Wow.
Yeah. And importantly, it's not a script for priests. It's not a ritual guide. These are prayers and hymns meant to be spoken by the person who had passed away to help them on their journey.
Okay, so the deceased themselves are the ones using it.
Exactly. Even its Egyptian name, Manru, there's some debate, but it translates roughly to coming forth by day or maybe coming out of the day. It really captures that central theme of emergence, rebirth from death.
That changes things completely. So if the deceased are speaking these prayers, what's the main goal? What are they trying to achieve with this collection?
Well, the big picture goal was what you might call beatification, basically ensuring they had a successful, blessed transition into a powerful afterlife state. And this had sort of four main aspects or benefits.
Okay.
First, just renewed existence, an afterlife that felt a lot like life on Earth.
Yeah.
I think chapter 110, it talks about plowing, mowing, eating, drinking, all in this ideal place called the Garden of Hotpit.
Like an eternal farm, almost.
Sort of. A
Dang.
paradise version, yeah. Second benefit, transformation. This is pretty amazing. The ability to change into, well, any form they wanted, across the whole universe, really. Chapter 77 mentions becoming a golden hawk. Chapter 81, a lotus flower.
Just change shape at will. That's incredible.
It is. Third, identification with the gods. Becoming like Osiris, for instance. Gaining that divine power to overcome enemies. You see it in chapter 1 where the deceased says something like, I am the great god in the bark.
So gaining godlike status.
Exactly. And finally, fourth, and this was absolutely vital for the Egyptians, complete preservation. Protection from being dismembered or decaying. You see, having an intact body, that was non-negotiable for your afterlife existence. That's fundamentally where mummification comes from.
Right. The physical body had to endure. It all connects. It sounds like they were really engineering their eternity.
They absolutely were. It wasn't just hope. It was a plan, a user manual, almost. Very pragmatic, really.
Okay, so they have this detailed manual, but how easy was it to follow? You mentioned texts evolving over millennia.
Yeah.
Were they clear instructions?
Well, that's another layer of complexity. The texts we have are often described as corrupt, meaning even back then they were full of copyist errors, mistakes made when they were written down.
So typos in your afterlife instructions.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. And beyond that, they used a lot of mythological allusions, metaphors that, honestly, were probably obscure even to some ancient Egyptians. Like, there's a phrase, eating one's heart. It literally means that, sure, but metaphorically. It meant regret or remorse. The meaning could get lost.
Huh. Eating one's heart for regret. That feels surprisingly modern. So symbolism was everywhere. How do they actually use these potentially confusing texts to get through the dangers then? Like that famous weighing of the words.
Right. Chapter 1 does mention N, the victorious N, just stands for the person's name navigating the netherworld and facing that judgment, the weighing of the words where their lightness, their truthfulness is tested. But the Egyptians, being practical, also had workarounds.
Workarounds for judgment. Like what?
Well, take chapter 6. It describes these little funerary statues called ushaptis. They were basically designed to do any hard labor required in the afterlife for the deceased. If called to work, the ushapti was meant to answer, here am I.
Huh. So like little afterlife assistants to handle the chores.
Yeah.
Clever.
Very clever. But even with helpers, the journey wasn't safe. It was full of perils. Think about chapter 7. It talks about needing to pass through the chine of a pepi.
A pippy. Who's that?
The pepi or pepessis was this huge storm cloud serpent embodying chaos, a massive threat. You needed the right protective spells, the knowledge from the book, just to get past dangers like that. Sometimes they'd even recite the chapter over a wax figure of a pepi to, magically weaken him.
Wow. So it's farming, transforming, facing judgment, battling chaos serpents. It's quite the adventure. This whole deep dive really paints an incredible picture of how Egyptians saw life, death, transformation. It's a unique look at how people have always aimed for something beyond, well, just ending.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at these texts, thousands of years old, written for one person's journey into the total unknown, it really reflects something deeply human, doesn't it? That need not just to survive death, but this powerful belief, this drive to actually thrive in whatever comes next. Makes you think, what stories are we telling ourselves now about navigating the future, the parts we can't yet see?